What do I mean by winners win and losers lose? I get asked this question all the time. I want to share it with you today. Winners are people that everything that they do, all the habits that they instill are the habits of a winner. A winner isn't a final product. A winner is a lifestyle, a concurrent set of actions that lead you to a final destination. Same way is for losers. Usually losers inhibit behaviors of losing people, who they hang out with, what they eat, what they listen to, what they consume on a regular basis, how they think about themselves, how they view the world. They view everything through the lens of a loser. That's why they are where they are today. So when people come to me and they're like, Luke, why is my life shit? All I have to do is look at your action. Most of you guys are operating at a 2 out of 10 and you're expecting a 10 out of 10 life. It's impossible.
He came from nothing. No money, no passport, no backup plan. Left Argentina with just $200 in his pocket. By 25, he was a crypto millionaire. But behind the meteoric rise was a web of secrecy, controversy, and sacrifice. Today, Luke Belmar is known more as a controversial figure than a respected entrepreneur. While his supporters see a visionary who cracked the code of online business and crypto, critics argue he's built an empire on fake claims and unverifiable success. This video breaks down the truth behind the persona, separating fact from fiction, and discloses the true cost of the wealth he has acquired. Who is Luke Belmar? Where did he come from, and what pushed him to escape his home country? Born in rural Argentina in 1996, Luke grew up in a modest household with little more than faith and survival instinct. The environment was tough. Limited opportunities, political instability, and a stagnant economy made dreams feel like a luxury. But there was something different about Luke. Even as a young teen, he displayed an obsessive drive to learn and to win. He devoured books on business, followed online forums, and believed that he could change his future through knowledge and action. At just 16, he made a decision most wouldn't dare: leave everything behind. Alone with no visa or safety net, he boarded a plane to the US with only $200 in his pocket. What followed was a relentless grind. He cleaned basketball courts, waited tables, and took any job he could find, sometimes 2 or 3 at a time. He rented the cheapest rooms, lived in strangers' basements, and showered at the gym. All while consuming books, forums, and YouTube videos about business, wealth, and freedom. One night, after a double shift, he stumbled onto a thread about Bitcoin. That moment lit the fuse. He didn't have much, but every tip, every leftover dollar went straight into crypto.
Understand that the blockchain. I hadn't read Satoshi Nakamoto's Bitcoin white paper or the entire perspective of what it meant to live in a decentralized financial system. I was clueless. I just knew that I wanted to make money. That led me down a rabbit trail of making money online. So I started with e-commerce. Started with drop shipping because when you don't have money, you basically want to arbitrage things.
Yeah. It wasn't just about money for Luke. He wanted to escape his current life. Belmar's mantra was simple: shift your mindset, and the money will follow. After months of self-education, he began experimenting with Facebook ads. Dropshipping was booming. Belmar tapped into viral trends, from novelty gadgets to pandemic-era face masks. One product alone, he claimed in interviews, generated over $16 million in sales. After that breakthrough, Luke doubled down. But he didn't chase gimmicks. Instead, he picked everyday niches: home essentials and household goods, like sanitizing tablets and silicone pet bowls. Boring, but reliable. His genius wasn't in the products, but in how he sold them. But crypto was where his conviction deepened. He funneled his service job tips into Bitcoin and Ethereum in the early days and didn't sell. He even held a 1% stake in PancakeSwap at launch, a play that later turned into millions.
Now, in order to compete, you need volume, you need traffic. He's going to drive that volume, he's going to drive that traffic. You need a competitor product to what? Uniswap. What is it? PancakeSwap. It was a direct fork. And who was talking, hey, consider PancakeSwap, consider the fact that they have a team overseas. I don't know much about them, but here's a little. I was like, those are some data sets. That's some clues. He's probably going to pump this bag. Before it was ever listed on Binance, I was already buying tens of thousands of units of cake, staking them. When I was staking on PancakeSwap, like the finance website, I think the APY was like 14,000%.
Before long, Luke's pursuit of freedom extended beyond wealth. He became obsessed with biohacking, the optimization of the mind and body through science, self-experimentation, and discipline. From cold plunges and nootropics to red light therapy and fasting protocols, Luke viewed his body as another asset to be maximized. The real goal? Not Lamborghinis or private jets, but control. Financial, mental, and physical. In his words, money is not the end goal, freedom is. But every empire has its cracks. As his online presence grew, so did the pressure. Luke was no longer a silent player in the background. He was building a public image, and that image needed to be maintained. The daily grind didn't stop after the millions came in. If anything, it intensified. He faced burnout. The kind of exhaustion that isn't just physical, but existential. Behind the aesthetic Instagram posts and polished YouTube edits was a man obsessed with perfection, image, and control. And then came the critics. Some questioned the legitimacy of his businesses. Others dug into his past, looking for proof of the empires he claimed to have built. One project stood out above the rest, the Capital Club, a private, invite-only community Luke founded in 2019. Marketed as a global network for entrepreneurs and investors, it promised access to mindset training, crypto insights, and high-level mentorship. But to skeptics, the $5,000+ entry price looked more like a paywall than a gateway. They called it a high-ticket hustle circle, more community than concrete. Because why would someone who's already loaded launch a gated club that charges members thousands of dollars to join? To many, the answer was simple. He wasn't telling the full truth, and this is where the trust began to crumble. This is where he started to pay the price. At the peak of his influence, Luke Belmar had built a powerful online empire. He had millions of dollars and followers. But then, the cracks turned into open wounds. 2020 had been a golden year. His e-commerce plays were booming, crypto was in full bull mode, and Capital Club subscriptions were growing monthly. Interviews painted him as a visionary. Instagram showed first-class flights, retreats in Bali, and luxury watches, all symbols of success. But beneath the surface, a storm was building. In 2021, crypto markets crashed. Projects he had backed, including PancakeSwap, saw major corrections. As Luke Belmar's online presence grew, so did public scrutiny. Critical content began circulating on YouTube and other platforms, quickly gaining traction. Various creators and commentators started dissecting his background, analyzing his business ventures, and raising questions about the credibility of his success stories. Allegations centered on inconsistencies in his narrative, the opaque nature of his financial claims, and concerns about the legitimacy of the strategies he promotes. This wave of skepticism marked a shift in how he was perceived, no longer just as a self-made success, but as a figure whose story warranted closer examination. Even Reddit threads compiled lists of inconsistencies, screenshots, quote, comparisons, and clips where Luke allegedly contradicted himself. The line between savvy entrepreneur and savvy fraud began to blur. Critics described him as someone who talks like a monk but sells like a salesman, a persona some admired, others distrusted. And for the first time, the conversation turned deeply personal, not by Luke, but by those who followed him. Just when it seemed like his empire might collapse under scrutiny, Luke did what few expected. He returned, but different. Gone were the daily dropshipping flexes and passive income mantras. He replaced this with long-form podcasts, deep talks on sovereignty, and a philosophical shift toward energy, mindset, and freedom. He doubled down on the Capital Club, not as a course hub, but as a lifestyle brand. New videos emphasized community, health, and decentralization. He started promoting biohacking, clean living, and digital independence. The flashy thumbnails were replaced with minimalist titles. The message was clear. While many influencers in the biohacking space focus on optimizing the body, Luke took it further. His obsession wasn't health, it was sovereignty. Think Andrew Huberman with his neuroscience lens, or Ido Portal with his primal movement philosophy. Belmar, on the other hand, built his identity around one radical idea: exit the system completely. Not improve it, escape it. He didn't just talk about dopamine or fasting. He spoke about decentralized finance, parallel networks, and building influence without ever being owned. His vision blended crypto, censorship resistance, and personal sovereignty into one ideology. Unlike others, his version of biohacking was a strategy for war, not wellness. A toolkit for survival in a digital age where algorithms decide who gets seen and who gets silenced. But critics weren't done. They called it a strategic move, not a transformation. Then he rebranded the same playbook in new packaging. Still, Luke's audience, now filtered through controversy, grew more loyal, more invested. The man who once chased algorithm virality now spoke in riddles, principles, and stoic calm. Was it growth, or was it survival? Beyond the content, Luke's real-world empire was growing too. Estimates of his net worth vary wildly, from $10 million to over $40 million. Fueled by early crypto gains, high-ticket communities like Capital Club, and untraceable e-commerce exits. He claims to invest in decentralized tech, real estate, and private equity. While details are scarce, insiders report that the Capital Club alone pulls in $200,000 plus per month in subscriptions. He also launched brands in the wellness and supplement space, quietly backing niche products targeting biohackers and digital nomads. It's not clear how many of these businesses he owns outright versus promotes, and that ambiguity is part of his mystique. What is clear? He's no longer just selling products, he's selling a philosophy. But the question remains, what happens when the lifestyle itself becomes the product? In the end, this was never just about e-commerce or crypto, it was about control. Luke Belmar didn't just want wealth, he wanted sovereignty over his time, his image, and his narrative. But the pursuit of total control comes with a cost, and that cost was losing all his credibility. Luke Belmar built an empire with limited visibility, rarely giving interviews, keeping operations obscure, and letting mystique do the talking. A business without borders, a brand built on mystery. But behind the luxury, the discipline, and the aesthetic lies a paradox. He preaches freedom, yet builds paywalls. He champions transparency, yet reveals nothing about his financials. His followers call him a guide, his critics call him a fraud. And in the shadows of his success, one truth echoes louder than the rest. Credibility is currency. Because while the money came in, the millions from crypto, e-commerce, and masterminds, something else slowly bled out. Respect, reputation, and trust. The backlash wasn't just digital. As exposies mounted and community trust wavered, Luke began to disappear from the spotlight. Posts became more cryptic, appearances more rare. He no longer needed attention, he needed control. Today, Luke lives what he calls a sovereign life. Off-grid travel, digital assets, performance routines, and exclusive circles. But no matter how far he distances himself from the mainstream, the internet remembers everything. And that memory is unforgiving. He sold the dream, but lost the benefit of the doubt. The same audiences that once admired his grind now question his motives. Where there was once reverence, now there is resistance. Where there was trust, now there are threads, endless threads. And in a world where perception is power, that loss is irreversible. That's the real price Luke Belmar paid. Not dollars, not followers, but something far more valuable: his name, his image, his very soul. He bought the freedom he always wanted, but the cost was everything money can't buy.
I know you're not following what I'm saying anyway, right? That's okay, that doesn't matter. The real question is this: is all this legal? Absolutely fucking not.